Welcome back to the Holistic Success Show. Today's special anniversary episode is both a celebration and a reflection. We are marking 25 years of 145, our program management solution, and talking about how far medical education has come in a relatively short time. And I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Meegan Carlson, our VP of People and Revenue Operations here at Acuity Insights. Meegan is a very dear colleague, and she has been part of the 145 team for many, many, many years and has seen firsthand how CBME has moved from ambition to implementation, from digital scheduling all the way to enterprise level strategy. Welcome, Meegan.
Thank you so much, Anju. Glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so thrilled that you're here. So let's just take you back to the very beginning of 145. Can you share a story of how 145 got started?
Anju, I would love to tell you a story. I was not there at the beginning. I've been a part of the 145 journey for about 10 years. But I know this story from our former 145 CEO, Brian Clare, an epic storyteller. He used to share with all of us on the 145 team how the company started way back in the year 2000 when Dr. Rick Arsenault, a program director for internal medicine at UBC, he had residents spread all across the province in British Columbia, and he was working to get assessments back in paper. So it was fax and it was mail. He really wanted to automate the collection of paper into an online platform, and he met a couple of tech co-founders who ended up founding 145, Derek Hemis and John Sims.
All right. So, speaking of the origins of 145, I have always been curious about how 145 got its name. I think I know the story a little bit, but would love to hear the full story from you, Meegan.
Of course. One of the most common questions we get when we're at a conference with 145 on our banners, it was actually John and Derek and Rick Arsenault. They had a series of meetings at this joint in BC called the Atlantic Trappengill. And they would meet every week for one beer for 45 minutes to bring their idea to life. So I think they came up with the first name as Fresh Tracks Software, but a couple of weeks later, they decided they hated that and were reflecting on the fact that they were meeting for one beer for 45 minutes a week, and they landed on a new name. It was called 145, and it stuck.
Meegan, that story is so deep. I'm totally blown away by that. Thank you so much for sharing it. And, now let's just make a shift to actually looking at some of the more serious things related to 145. So, the skeptic's take is that some people still say that CBME or competency-based medical education and even the data infrastructure that supports it, all of this is just too complex to do well. What would you say to someone who believes that the whole vision is just too idealistic and can never really scale and come to life and be adopted broadly?
This is a great question, Anju. I really do understand the hesitation that some institutions and even some folks have. CBME looks complex, and the systems that support it, they seem like they're even harder sometimes. It doesn't mean that it can't work. There's a lot of value in it. I just think it means you need to start in the right place. So part of my history, even before 145, I was a part of Dalhousie's internal medicine residency program. And this was back when Canada's PGME programs first started talking about adopting CBME with the Royal College. That was more than a decade ago. I'm aging myself. But since then, I've seen lots of institutions, dozens really, adopt it and even use 145 to help them get there. And each one of them made progress by starting small, not by aiming for the whole perfect model of complexity. Anju, you know our colleague, Sylvia Mioduszewski. She's worked in this space for years. She often says CBME is like a unicorn. People chase a version of it that really doesn't exist. It's a fantasy. The truth is the core model or the philosophy, it works, but trying to perfect it slows you down. You get lost in the weeds. Sylvia really says it best. I love this analogy. Aim for a donkey, not a unicorn. Focus on the routine, on the foundation, make it functional. Don't waste your time trying to make it pretty. When 145 started, we tackled some really messy technical work in medical education, the stuff taking paper assessments and scheduling that used to be done on huge bulletin boards, and brought it into software and made it about the user experience. We didn't wait for a perfect model. We listened to medical schools, we built it, we tested it, we shipped it. That's how you make the change happen. And CBME can scale just like that. I think it already has, but only in the places that are really choosing progress over that fantasy of polish. That's the hard work. And that's the part that I think is worth doing.
That is like such a pragmatic way of looking at it. And I now have a new piece of advice for people, which is look at the donkey, not the uniform, unicorn.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, when we look at 145, it actually played a huge role in bringing programs into the digital program management realm, whether it was assessments or whether it was feedback loops. And so, what did the shift look like in practice, and how did it lay the groundwork for this whole enterprise wide view that we are looking at today?
I honestly think the shift started with the basics. I said this a few minutes ago. 25 years ago, programs were still using paper. They had shared drives. There were some basic spreadsheets, but 145 moved some of those core tasks of delivering education and curriculum, like assessments, scheduling rotations, and evaluations, into a digital system that worked for academic teams. The early work really mattered. It wasn't about making it shiny and polished and perfect. It was about making it useful. Programs needed a structure, they needed a place to store their feedback, track the progress, manage the clinical placements, all of the things, the day to day routine. And 145 gave them that space in a shared digital environment. And once they had those systems, that's when the real value started to show up. Suddenly, you could figure out patterns that you couldn't tell from a binder full of paper assessments before. They could pull a report and ask new questions about performance, progress, outcomes, and get an answer faster. And that shift, I think, is a great reflection of the foundation we're building now. Connected systems, we have all of this tech. But now, how do you connect all of that and see the program wide dashboards, the infrastructure that's ready for artificial intelligence and AI? But none of that works if you don't have the basics down. You need the clean data, you need the reliable input, you need the workflows that make that big picture really possible. Anju, you know this. We didn't start out with an enterprise view. We earned it. We're in the weeds, solving some real problems first with our partners, and I still think that's how we move forward.
Yeah, those are such good points. And like you talk about data, and data is no longer a nice to have. It is totally critical. But how do we use data ethically and responsibly in a CBME environment, and how do we avoid turning learners into just data points?
Mm. I'm so glad you asked this question. This is super important. I think it really starts with being honest about what the data is for and making sure you have that consent, that buy in. If learners don't know how you're planning to use the data or why it matters, then we've already failed before we started. Data is about supporting learning, but it's only helpful if you have trust. And that means programs need to be clear about what they're collecting, how it's being used, and who gets to see what. If I'm learning something, I never want to feel like I'm being watched. And that goes for anybody in an academic institution. You want to feel like you're learning and you're being supported. You don't want to feel like you're being scrutinized. And context is the whole thing that matters. A single score or a checkbox, that's never going to tell you a story. It's the narrative feedback, it's the comments that people share, it's the patterns that you can identify over time. Even with competency, data needs to be interpreted by a human, someone who cares, the people who know about the learner. It's not about the dashboards, but you have to bake consent into that process. It's not like legal fine print. We'll have a conversation, talk a learner through the conversation, not just be the subject of it all. CBME was really built about growth. When I think about those early days in internal medicine, and we were talking about how do you make this work, you're excited because you want to grow and be better. You don't want to judge your residents or your learners. And that's where we should start from with data. When we use data with transparency and with purpose, it becomes something we can use for development instead of that icky feeling of surveillance. That's the line I think we need to hold, not just here at Acuity, but with our partners making this conversation about data. Maybe I feel this a little more deeply because I'm responsible for people and culture here at Acuity, but I do think it's a critical one for academic institutions to hold true to, and you have to maintain that trust, and that's what's important for growth and learning.
Yeah, you make such a good point, Megan. Like, if the focus is about helping you get better, helping you achieve your outcomes and your dreams, and all of that stuff, versus scrutinization, that's just a different realm altogether.
Yeah.
And then additionally, I will just say that medical education is so complex,
Mm.
so many different moving parts, and so many individuals and organizations and institutions being involved, and just so many data points being generated everywhere, that without actually having a good sort of, wrapping your arms around that and having good insights from that, it's really hard to support learners effectively. So yeah, with that said, let's move over to you. You have worked in so many different areas
Mhm.
of, whether it's operations, people, learning, even product strategy, and you've been at both, private organizations and private companies, as well as at universities. So you really have a 360-degree view, from all ends. So, Megan, what mindsets or system level changes have you seen that have been most important in making CBME and data driven education actually stick and work?
Yeah, this is a really good question, Anju. I think this is one I remember talking about back at Dalhousie with the residency program. And even now, the first thing that makes anything stick is how you get buy in from your leaders. And it's not just in the name. You got to get it's time, it's budget, it's clear expectations. I see this is true even in some of our business changes at Acuity, but it's especially true when you think about academia. And like you said, medical education is so complex. You have all these departments, you have a whole group of faculty, you have all of the administrators in higher education. And if folks see CBME as a side project or something that only the education office is worried about, it's not something that's going to infiltrate alignment and it's not going to last. So, getting that buy in and ensuring everybody's working together on the whole process of change management, aligning your leaders and getting that ultimate dedication to the value that's underneath it. That's the way you find success to go forward. So, the first thing I would say, leadership buy in. If I think about the second thing, though, it's the faculty and your admin. Faculty are the ones in the clinic. They're at the bedside. They're writing the assessments. They're trying to collect all of this data in the midst of the chaos of the day to day. And your administrators are the folks behind the scenes trying to make all of these systems work. And if those two groups don't understand the why, or if the tools they have to use it are clunky, it's just going to break. So faculty and admins need the training, the support. They need systems that don't slow them down. And it's harder. Faculty and staff right now in academic institutions, they're all overburdened and under resourced more than ever. And when academic institutions can find a partner that helps support them or a system that can make their jobs easier instead of harder, that's when you can find a little bit of magic in all of this. So, what did I say? First one, leadership buy in. Second one, focus on supporting your faculty and admin. And the third one, I think, is really about it's about alignment again, but maybe from a different angle. This is about academic leads, your program staff, your IT, your curriculum committees. CBME and data driven education, it crosses over every part of the system. So your work behind it has to too. And that takes a whole lot more time and a whole lot of larger coordination behind change management. Anju, I don't know about you, but I'm already exhausted from all the change happening in the world right now. And when we're exhausted, any other change can just feel overwhelming. And all of us are overwhelmed and resisting change. But if you can take that thought about aligning cross functionally and anchor it to something that is stable through the process, like committing to supporting our learners and making it clear for them how it's going to help them learn and grow, you bring everyone along through some strong communication. You repeat your goals and your mission. You have your leaders at the center and they're committed to this work. That's when I've seen this go well. Ultimately, I think at 145, we saw programs successful when they really did have the ability to treat it as operational level change, not just about education in its own little silo. It meant you think about the work, you think about your policy, you think about the tools, and what actually works for people. It wasn't fast, but it's what holds true and makes it successful over time.
So many different things that you shared here, Meegan. I can see a big blog article coming out of
Ooh.
out of your all the advice that you've given, because yeah, it isn't just one thing. It's just so many different things. But when I think about competency based medical education, I also think about the huge service for the patient population, that your doctors are actually coming out with the competencies that they need. So all of the effort and all of the heavy lifting is so well worth it, because it's about the health of our society.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So moving to the next question, it's one of our favorite questions on the show, and that is about reimagining success. So, this it also happens to be the theme of our season this year. So, in a world where data, strategy, and learner experience are fully aligned, what does success look like now in medical education, and how is it different from how we used to define it, Meegan?
Ooh, Andrew, you're talking about the shiny unicorn right here, aren't you? The trifecta of
That
full
is true.
alignment. I will see how I can tackle this. I don't know that anybody has the possibility of that full alignment, but here's what I think around how you can strive towards it. So, for a long time, medical education meant meeting standards. So, you had to complete the checklist, pass the rotation, graduate on time. So, there was a structure that brought consistency. And, I love a checklist on you. There's some value in that. But it also meant there wasn't a whole lot of room for individual growth or adaptation or different learning styles. So, if data and strategy and a learner experience are all working together, you get to define this whole new level of success. It's not just about outcomes, it's actually about the journey. It's about how people get there. Are they building real competence? Do they have all the support they need? Have we made room for feedback, for reflection, to be flexible? And that's what I think about real success. If you can actually align those things, you get a chance to think about those things proactively. In corporate learning, part of my responsibility, Anju knows this, is learning and enablement. And we've seen some more agile, learner driven models come out. MedEd can borrow from that. And it means you can do that without losing the depth and the accountability that it needs to have and that it's known for. It's not about loosening the standards, it's about building something that's a little more flexible without breaking it. So, my idea of a new version of success, it still has that rigor. You still have the checklists. You still have to follow through on what's important. You still have that structure, but it gets more personal. It lets learners grow at their own pace. It's not just checking all the boxes and moving along in time. And it gives programs some data to back it all up, not to rank themselves, but to figure out how to get better. And that to me is the shift. I'll be bold. Having been part of academia and now I'm here in the corporate world, I'll say it out loud. I think it's overdue and I think it's possible.
Woo, that is so amazing. Every time I talk to you, Meegan, I come away joyful and having learned so much. So thank you so much. This has been such a rich conversation. Thanks for helping us celebrate 25 years of 145. This journey has been about so much more than software, as you well know, as I have learned. It's about people, it's about purpose, it's about progress. And so, let's definitely continue the conversation soon. I can't wait to connect with you again, Meegan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anju. Looking forward to the next time.
Great. Thank you. And to all our viewers and listeners out there, we look forward to seeing you again in this brand new season on Reimagining Success. See you soon. If you enjoyed this episode of the Holistic Success Show, please be sure to check out our other episodes. We have episodes coming out regularly all the time, so please be sure to subscribe so that you can stay up to date on all things related to student and program success in higher education.